There is a person in your life right now who is lying to you. Not a stranger, not someone you distrust, someone you love. Someone you have defended, someone you have made excuses for. Someone whose behavior you have quietly absorbed because you told yourself it would get better. And the terrifying part is not what they are doing to you. The terrifying part is that they are doing it deliberately. They know exactly what they are doing. They have always known. And every time you gave them the benefit of the doubt, every time you chose compassion over clarity, every time you told yourself they're going through something, they counted on that. They planned on it. Because your kindness was not something they admired, it was something they used. John Wick has met this person. He has sat across the table from them. He has shaken their hand. He has looked into eyes that smiled while plotting his destruction. And the reason John Wick survived, the reason he walked out of rooms that were designed to be his grave, is not because he was the most dangerous man alive. It's because he was the most clear. He could see through the mask. He could read the strategy beneath the performance. He could look at someone radiating warmth and know, with cold precision, that the warmth was a weapon. Today, I'm going to teach you how to do exactly that. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will never be manipulated the same way again. Welcome to 100-Day Challenge. Today is day 15. Today we are breaking down one of the most important and most dangerous psychological books ever written, In Sheep's Clothing by Dr. George K. Simon. And we are doing it entirely through the psychology, the mindset, the discipline, and the survival strategy of John Wick. Thousands of people have read this book. Millions of people have experienced exactly what this book describes. But almost nobody has analyzed it through the lens of John Wick. Through a man who has been lied to, betrayed, manipulated, played, and set up by people he trusted, and who found a way not just to survive that, but to emerge from it with absolute clarity about who he is and what he stands for. Dr. George K. Simon is a clinical psychologist who spent decades working with some of the most difficult human beings imaginable. People who manipulated everyone around them, who destroyed relationships and careers and families, and who never once genuinely believed they did anything wrong. He wrote In Sheep's Clothing because he watched too many good people get eaten alive by these individuals. He watched good people blame themselves. He watched good people exhaust themselves trying to understand, trying to heal, trying to reach someone who was never lost, only calculating. He wrote this book to give those good people a language, a framework, a set of eyes they didn't have before. And today, we are giving you those eyes. Through the world of John Wick, through a man who learned the hard way what happens when you trust the wrong people, and who, through that crucible, became something most of us have never seen, a person who cannot be manipulated, not because he stopped caring, but because he started seeing. This is going to change the way you understand every relationship in your life, every conversation, every moment when someone said something that made you feel confused or guilty, or small, or crazy, and you couldn't figure out why. After today, you will know why. Let us begin. Lesson 1. The lie that makes you vulnerable. Before Dr. Simon could explain how covert aggressors operate, he had to dismantle one of the most deeply held beliefs in modern psychology. A belief so widespread, so comfortable, so culturally embedded, that questioning it feels almost cruel. The belief is this: when someone behaves badly, when they lie to you, manipulate you, control you, hurt you, it is because they are hurting on the inside. They are wounded, they are scared, they are acting out of unhealed trauma. And if you just show them enough patience, enough empathy, enough unconditional love, they will eventually access that inner hurt, process it, and transform. This belief is everywhere. It is in our therapy culture, our relationship advice, our movies, our music. It tells us that everyone who causes harm is secretly suffering, that there is always a wounded child underneath the destructive adult, that compassion is always the answer. Dr. Simon spent his career watching this belief destroy people, not because compassion is wrong, but because this belief makes one catastrophic assumption: that all harmful behavior comes from the same psychological source, that everyone who hurts you is neurotic, that everyone who manipulates you is doing it out of inner conflict and unresolved pain. And that assumption, Dr. Simon says, is dangerously, provably false. He draws a line, a sharp, clear, unambiguous line between two completely different types of people who cause harm. The first type he calls neurotic. These are people who genuinely struggle with their own psychology. They feel too much. They are riddled with anxiety and guilt. They have inner conflicts that they cannot resolve. When they hurt you, it is often the result of those unresolved conflicts spilling outward. And crucially, they know something is wrong. They feel bad. They want to fix it. They are capable of genuine remorse because they have a functioning conscience that is regularly tormenting them. The classic neurotic person is someone who lashes out in anger and then immediately feels terrible about it, who withdraws in a moment of insecurity and then apologizes and means it, who is struggling with their own demons and sometimes, in that struggle, causes collateral damage to the people around them. This person can benefit from compassion. This person can grow. This person is, in the truest sense, someone who is hurting and whose behavior reflects that hurt. But there is a second type. Dr. Simon calls them character disturbed. And this is where the entire framework of how most of us think about harmful behavior gets turned completely upside down. The character disturbed person is not struggling with inner conflict. They are not consumed by guilt. They are not secretly suffering beneath a hard exterior. They do not lie awake at night tormented by their conscience. Their conscience does not torment them. They know exactly what they are doing to you. They are aware of every manipulation, every lie, every tactic. And they are not troubled by it. They feel entitled to it. They feel you deserve it. They feel that the way they treat people is simply a reasonable response to a world that is not giving them what they deserve. You develop an internal editor that constantly asks, "Am I overreacting?" before you allow yourself to respond to anything. You have been trained to minimize yourself on their behalf. The second weapon, denial. This one is simple in design and brutal in effect. Something happens. You know it happened. You experienced it directly. And when you bring it up, the person looks at you with complete calm and says, "That didn't happen. I never said that. I never did that. You are misremembering." Not, "I'm sorry I did that." Not, "I didn't mean it that way." Just a flat, confident, unwavering denial of the reality you experienced. And here is what makes this so psychologically devastating. Confident denial from someone you trusted forces you to choose between your perception and theirs. And most people, especially people who have been in this dynamic for a while, and whose confidence in their own perception has already been eroded, will find themselves starting to question their own memory. Maybe I am misremembering. Maybe it didn't happen that way. They seem so sure. The covert aggressor does not need to prove that you are wrong. They only need to be certain enough that you begin to doubt yourself. And in that doubt, in that moment of perceptual surrender, they escape accountability completely. The third weapon, selective inattention. You raise a concern, a real, legitimate, thoughtful concern about something that is affecting you, and the person you are speaking to simply does not engage with it. They change the subject. They start talking about something else. They respond to a completely different point than the one you made. And when you say, "I don't think you heard what I said," they say, "I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention," which is technically true. They were not paying attention, on purpose. Selective inattention is the deliberate act of choosing not to receive the information that is inconvenient, and then using that chosen ignorance as a defensive shield. "I didn't hear you" becomes, "I have no responsibility to respond to that." The long-term effect is that you stop raising certain topics, not because the topics are resolved, not because the concerns are addressed, but because you have learned through repetition that these topics will be ignored. And after enough ignored attempts, you begin to wonder whether the topics are even worth raising, whether your concerns are valid, whether you are asking for too much. You have been trained into silence by the strategic withholding of acknowledgement. The fourth weapon, rationalization. When the covert aggressor cannot deny what they did, when the evidence is too clear or the witnesses too many, they explain it. Not apologize, explain. And the explanation is always constructed the same way, to make their behavior not just understandable, but justified, reasonable, even admirable given the circumstances. "I had to do that because of what you did first. I wouldn't have acted that way if you hadn't pushed me. You know how I get when things like this happen. This is really on you." Anyone would have done the same thing. Every explanation is crafted to reassign responsibility, to paint themselves as a reasonable person responding reasonably to an impossible situation that you or someone else created. And here is why rationalization is so particularly effective, because some of the explanations will contain a grain of truth. Maybe you did do something that contributed to the situation. Maybe the circumstances were genuinely complicated. The covert aggressor takes that grain of truth and builds an entire architecture of justification around it. And you end up apologizing for something they did to you. The fifth weapon, diversion. The conversation is going somewhere dangerous for them. They are being held accountable for something. The evidence is clear. The argument is tight. And so they move. They bring up something from 3 years ago. They shift the topic to something you did wrong. They introduce an emotional crisis that suddenly requires your attention. They ask a tangential question that sends the conversation in a completely different direction. And most of us follow. Not because we are foolish, but because we are fair. We are conditioned to consider multiple perspectives, to not be obsessive, to give people the benefit of the doubt. So when someone introduces a new topic, our instinct is to engage with it. And the original issue, the one that was actually leading somewhere, disappears, buried under the new conversation and never returned to. John Wick is completely immune to diversion. When he is moving toward something, when he has identified his target and his objective, side conversations do not redirect him. Emotional appeals do not redirect him. New information does not cause him to lose the thread of what he came to do. That focus is not stubbornness. It is the refusal to be derailed by strategy disguised as conversation. The sixth weapon: lying. Most people believe they can detect a liar. We look for nervous energy. We look for averted eyes, fidgeting, micro-expressions of discomfort. We expect liars to seem uncomfortable with what they are saying. Dr. Simon says this expectation is one of the most dangerous vulnerabilities we have. Covert aggressors lie constantly. They have been lying since long before you knew them. And because they lie so consistently, so regularly, with so little internal conflict about it, they have become completely comfortable with it. They do not sweat. They do not hesitate. They do not look away at the wrong moments. They lie with the same calm, open expression they use when they tell the truth. Which means every detection tool most of us are using, every instinct we have honed for spotting dishonesty, is useless against them. Dr. Simon says, stop looking for anxiety as the indicator of a lie. Start looking for motivation. Ask yourself, what does this person gain from this particular version of events? What does this version of the story protect for them? What would the truth cost them? The answer to those questions is far more reliable than any body language read. The seventh weapon: covert intimidation. The covert aggressor makes a threat, but the threat is never explicit. It is always delivered in a way that could be interpreted innocently, with a smile, with calm, with perfect plausible deniability. I'm just saying, it would be unfortunate if this situation got more complicated. People who make waves in environments like this tend to find things difficult. I hope you're thinking carefully about what you're doing here. The threat is absolutely real. The target feels it immediately. The chill, the fear response, the sense that something dangerous has just been communicated. But the delivery is engineered so that if you called it out, the aggressor could say, I have no idea what you're referring to. I was just making an observation. And the most insidious part is that the target's fear, which is a completely appropriate response to what just happened, has no clean place to go. You cannot tell someone you were threatened because technically you weren't. You cannot defend yourself against what was said because what was said sounds benign when quoted. You are left afraid, with no way to explain why, and no avenue of legitimate response. The eighth weapon: guilt tripping. After everything I've done for you, I sacrificed so much, and this is the thanks I get. I don't ask for much. I just wanted this one thing, and you can't even give me that. Guilt is one of the most powerful psychological forces in human experience. It evolved for a reason: to bind communities together, to make us take seriously the impact of our behavior on people we care about, to ensure that we do not carelessly harm the people who need us. The covert aggressor knows this, and they weaponize it with extraordinary precision. They manufacture debt. They exaggerate their sacrifice. They create a ledger of generosity that you did not know was being kept, and then present the bill at the exact moment when your compliance is most valuable to them. They frame every request as a small, reasonable repayment for enormous, ongoing generosity. And if you hesitate, if you say no, or even pause before saying yes, the guilt arrives immediately and completely. Not because you actually failed them, but because they engineered that feeling. Dr. Simon draws a distinction that can genuinely change the way you experience yourself. He distinguishes between guilt that arises from genuine wrongdoing, guilt that is your conscience accurately informing you that you have caused harm and need to make it right, and guilt that has been installed in you by someone who needs you to feel obligated. One is a moral compass. The other is a leash. Learning to tell the difference is one of the most important skills you can develop. The ninth weapon: shaming. Guilt and shame are related but distinct, and the distinction matters enormously. Guilt says, you did something bad. Shame says, you are something bad. Guilt is about behavior. Shame is about identity. And the character-disturbed person, when they want to achieve maximum psychological impact with minimum effort, reaches for shame. Someone with real integrity wouldn't behave this way. I expected better from you. This is exactly the kind of thing I was afraid you'd do. A person who genuinely cared about this relationship wouldn't make this choice. These statements are not feedback. They are attacks on your fundamental sense of who you are. They are designed to make you feel defective, inadequate, less than, and therefore deeply in need of the aggressor's approval as evidence that you are still okay, still acceptable, still worthy. Once someone has established that level of power over your sense of self, once you need their approval to feel like a worthwhile human being, they have everything. Every limit you might set, every boundary you might draw, every moment of resistance you might muster becomes an act against your own psychological security. That is the goal of shaming. The 10th weapon: playing the victim. This is the move that defines the covert aggressor. It is their signature, their most reliable weapon, and the one that causes the most disorientation in the people around them. They cause harm, real, deliberate, documented harm, and then, faster than you can process what just happened, they become the injured party. Before you can say what they did to you, they are already explaining what you did to them. Before you can articulate your pain, they are already performing theirs. Before you can name the damage, they are already asking for your sympathy. Look at how you're speaking to me right now. I can't believe after everything I've done, this is how you treat me. Do you have any idea how much this is hurting me? And suddenly, somehow, the person who caused the damage is the one receiving the comfort. The person who was manipulated is the one apologizing. The conversation that began with a clear and legitimate grievance ends with you consoling the person who created the grievance. This works because it exploits the exact trait that the covert aggressor has already identified in you: your empathy, your instinct to respond to suffering, your inability to sit comfortably while someone is in visible distress. Your empathy, which is one of your greatest gifts, becomes your greatest vulnerability. Because you cannot easily distinguish between real suffering and performed suffering, and the covert aggressor has had a great deal of practice performing. The antidote, and this is one of the most important things in this entire video, is to shift your focus entirely from what someone says about their experience to what they have demonstrably done through their behavior. Not their words, not their tears, not their performance of pain, their behavior. What did they actually do? What patterns have their actions traced over time? What do the things they have chosen to do when the stakes were real and the choices were clear tell you about who they actually are? That shift, from listening to watching, from responding to performances to reading behavior, that shift is protective in a way that almost nothing else is. The 11th weapon, projecting blame. This is your fault. If you hadn't done what you did, none of this would have happened. You created this situation, and now you're surprised by the result? The character-disturbed person does not accept responsibility, not genuinely. The appearance of responsibility, the performance of self-reflection, the theatrical apology, is possible and common. But genuine, lasting, behavior-changing acknowledgement of responsibility is extraordinarily rare. What they do instead is reverse the direction of blame so confidently, so completely, so consistently, that their target begins to absorb it. Maybe I did create this. Maybe this is my fault. I should have been different. I should have known better. And in that moment of absorbed blame, the aggressor is free. The slate is clean, and they can begin again from a position of perfect innocence. The 12th weapon, feigning innocence. I had no idea this bothered you. You never told me you felt this way. I genuinely didn't know that was an issue. When confronted with harm they caused, the covert aggressor performs ignorance. They present themselves as someone who had absolutely no way of knowing that their behavior was problematic, and who is, in fact, quite hurt to discover that you have been suffering in silence without telling them. This move is remarkably effective because it resets the entire situation. If they genuinely didn't know, then they cannot be held accountable for something done in ignorance. The harm was an accident, and accidents are forgivable. Except it was not ignorance. They knew. They always knew. Dr. Simon says the key is to pay careful attention to patterns over time. A single instance of claimed ignorance is possible. Someone can genuinely not know, once, that something they did was harmful. But a repeated pattern, the same harm caused again and again, the same "I didn't know" offered again and again, even after you have clearly communicated what the harm was, is not ignorance. It is strategy. Genuine ignorance, once corrected, leads to changed behavior. Strategic ignorance, once exposed, leads to a more sophisticated performance of ignorance the next time.